Hi guys and welcome. Today we're going to make these beautiful tags and pocket. So I've decided to get out my Distress Oxides and play around with a little bit of ink to do the background. So we're going to do that first and I'll show you how I've got this effect on the background. Absolutely beautiful colours. The Distress Oxide ink I'm using is Speckled Egg, and I've got one of these craft mats down. I apologise, it's got a bit of a shine on it. But we just smooch it down on these because these are great. I mean, I've got the glass mat underneath too. I could have done it straight on that, but it has a really bright glare from my overhead light. So we just spritz it with a little bit of water. Now I use a bit of a brush because I don't want those square outlines from the pad. And just sort of smooch it around a bit. And then I just got a bit of plain cream cardstock and then just smooched it down so you'll see. So we're getting some like watermarks on there. Beautiful. Have a look at the places that don't have too much ink on it and then just concentrate on those. We don't want an even cover on there. We are going to cut these up, but you want a bit of a pattern, a bit of ink on all of it. You don't want to waste any space. If I've got surplus on my mat, there's not too much surplus there, but I'll give it another spritz and then I'll just grab some scraps. So for example, I'll just get some book page. So some book page there, and just to get a little bit of colour or texture on that book page, and then we'll let it dry off to the side. It just helps you use up your ink rather than wasting it. And then I just get a baby wipe or a wet one. I always have these on my desk, and then you just wipe it clean. Lovely. Now I've got one that's dry, so we can sort of keep moving forward. I've already cut the tag out, and I'll cut the pocket now for you. And I basically just went 5 by 3 or 3 1/4, I think it was. So that one's already 5, and then which has got the most. Depends on how deep you want your pockets. What did I go with that one? About 3 1/4. So we'll stick to that. And keep these scraps. We can always stamp a word or something on that. All right, beautiful. So we've got our 2 pieces. I'm just going to punch out a notch on that. You don't have to. I always like a notch. 1, it's decorative, and 2, you can actually, if you've got something you've slid down in the pocket, it does make it a little bit easier to get out there. So we've got the basis of our background. Now I'm going to ink around the edges, and the Distress Oxide I'm using is Walnut Stain, which is obviously one of my favorites because I use it in every video, you'll notice. And it teams really well with the Speckled Egg, and especially on the cream cardstock. Now this is a beautiful textured cream cardstock, so I do have that one in my shop, guys, and I'll put a link below because it's a really nice cream, and I looked everywhere to get a nice cream that wasn't too yellow to stock in my shop because it's easy to make it look vintage, as you can see. I'll just give a bit of a smooch with the inker just to even it across. Just takes off any lighter places like that, and you'll be able to go back over it at the end if you want it a darker edge around those. All right, so that's the edges of those. Then I decided I'd have a little bit of a play with some background stamps or decorative stamps. So this one I'm using, and I'll show you the stamp set. I've dragged out my old Stampin' Up sets with these ones. So this one is a very old one, and it's called Bliss, and I'm using this one here. And I'm going to, now we've done our ink on the background, which is Speckled Egg. I'm now going to stamp with it. So bear in mind, once I stamp on here, you won't be able to wet it, because it'll loosen up the ink and it'll blend in and smudge into each other. So then I just have a look at where I want to place my stamp, and on the tag I put one up the top there, and then I put one down the bottom. But you can place it anywhere. And obviously if you don't have this stamp, just find a floral, a leaf, just something that'll add a little bit of contrast to your background there. You might have a flower, some leaves, a fern, some sort of decorative lattice work. And if you've got a big stamp, then just touch parts of it, because you're not going to see much of it when we cover it over. Actually, I might do while I've got the stamp out, I might as well do this one as well, which I didn't use the background one in my original prototype there, I've just noticed, but I've certainly done it on this one because I love it. I hadn't played with my stamps for a while, and you know, I was going through Pinterest today to get some inspiration for a video more around colorings, and I just noticed some, you know, background. I mean, you can use paper if you don't have any stamps or any ink. You can just use some sort of paper that's got some decorative patterns on it as well. But I thought, why not? And there was I particularly like the dragonflies, and you know, it had a tag with a big dragonfly on it, and I thought, I know I've got a dragonfly stamp, but I don't think I've got one that big. I think it was a Stampers Anonymous one. So I went through my stamps and come across this set, which is a Stampin' Up set, and I've hardly used it, and it's called Dragonfly Garden. And I really liked the size of the dragonflies for the tag, so I've gone with that one. With the tag itself, I have stamped the image straight on there, and then with the pocket, I have stamped it off on a piece of paper and cut it out. So we might just concentrate on the tag to start with. So I've stamped it with my dragonfly flying upwards like that, and I've used black archival ink for the butterfly. And now I'm going to stamp, which is more decorative background stamping. I'm going to use the archival ink Potting Soil, and I think it's a relatively new one. And then I've got this beautiful skeleton leaf stamp, which is on this set, Loyal Leaves. I really liked those two leaves in particular, which is why I bought that set. But I have had it for a couple of years, and I've only used it a few times. So hence I decided to dive into my stamps and have a look at what I've got and get them out and use them. I mean, guys, we pay good money for them, so why not get them out and use them? Now I've done a double stamping there, so you've got your original print and you've got like a ghost print off there. You could stamp both the same, but if you weren't putting anything over the bottom down here, you don't want it to overlap too much and cover up that beautiful stamped image. We are going to be putting some labels over it, so we pretty well much just wanted the top or the side piece there showing on that. Now the labels I'm using are I think this one's Tracy Fox, and I'm not sure about this one. Tracy Fox is renowned for her labels, and her Etsy shop is called Love Junk Journals. I will try and put a link down the bottom for that too, guys, because she has some absolutely beautiful labels. So if you don't have labels, then you know, pull out a stamp of some sort and stamp it, or you may have a frame stamp, just anything, just to throw a bit of contrast on there. You may want to put some flowers or some die cuts down the bottom there. But I really like the labels in particular for this one. And then we're going to work out how far we want to come across on that one. Sort of don't want to cover up that leaf too much. And I'm not cutting the label off, I'm actually folding it over, which is why I've inked it. And I should ink the back of that. Because it's too hard to do once you've folded that label over. Look, if you wanted to add some decorative stuff on the back there too, you could do a double, like stamp on, stamp off. So I'm going to stamp a first image off that, and then I'm just going to add some to the background there. And you can still journal on the back of that tag. Okay, so I'm going to glue that one down, and I'm using art glitter glue. I like it because it's got a nice fine tip for the finer work, and it pretty well much glues everything. So you're not having to switch glues around too much. Now I've left a bit down the bottom because I do want to pull this label just off it like that, just to give it like a layering effect. I forgot how much fun playing with ink is, so I'm going to be doing a lot more. I just love the backgrounds that you get. And you know, we've got those of us that have a bit of a collection with the ink pads, why not get them out and use them? I must admit I haven't used mine in quite a while, and they just add that little bit of extra something to your projects. Now we're going to put an eyelet in that. So I've punched a hole in this one using my Crop-A-Dile, and I've used the big hole, not the small one. I'm going to get an eyelet and put through. If you don't have a Crop-A-Dile, they are expensive, but it's one of my most used tools. You certainly won't regret getting one. That's if you do, you know, a lot of tags and tickets and stuff like that for your journal. All right, that one's there. Now we are going to go around the edge. So some people like to sew, so if you're a sewer, you could definitely sew around the edge of this. My machine is packed away in a shipping container, and I dare say it's right at the back because I haven't unpacked everything. So I'm actually just going to use a black pen and do a line, and a very organic line. I don't want it to be perfect, I want it looking fairly rough. And what I'm using today is a Uniball, a Unipin fine line water and fade proof pigment ink marker, and it's a 0.61. And it basically, as long as your cardstock's dry, you'll have no problem with it at all. And then I just go around and put a bit of a line. You could do dots like stitching. You could do a double line. And as you can see, I'm not being too particular because I actually like the rough look to it. And it just, to me, it just finishes it off. And then we grab a little piece of sari silk. So I've got this beautiful, oh, it's dyed, it's got bits of tape on it. Sort of like a bit of a marble vintage cream. You could, of course, get some seam binding tape and, you know, put some ink down on your mat and you know, scrunch it through there to get a similar effect. And then you just work out, you know, how tall you want that or how far you want it sticking out of your journal or your project. And so that's the tag. Let's pop it off to the side and go back to our pocket. Now we'll do our stamping on our pocket. So I've got 2 leaves in this corner. I'll grab the leaf again. So this one that's called Loyal Leaves, which is a Stampin' Up one, it may still even be available if you know a Stampin' Up rep. And I had the darkest print going up the top here, and then the other one off the side there. I always like, you know, a main feature in the corner there on pockets. And then across the top, we've got like a little bit of a band. This is just made out of some beautiful recycled paper or handmade paper. It is a scrap, as you can see. And I'm not gluing it down purposely because I want to leave it similar to like a bit of a belly band or a tuck. But I do want to line it up so it gets... So I get the holes in the same place. So just going to keep my finger on that and using my Crop-A-Dile, the small side, just punching a hole for the brad. So trying not to lose my spot. And I've gone in a bit because I know I'm going to have a line down there. So once you've got your holes lined up like that, you can take the piece off and we're going to ink it. To ink it, and then we're going to stamp. So using the potting soil one again. This is a sentiment off it's off the Dragonfly Garden set. So it says "You are an inspiration." And I want to stamp it to the right, but off in a bit. So not the center. I like it off to the right because the other side we're going to be adding our dragonfly. So then we just get a couple of brads. So these are little mini brads. Which are really great for projects because they're not bulky. They pretty well much sit flat. I know I do have mixed colours in the shop that come with your antique bronze, your silver, your gold. I think there's black and some coloured ones as well. So you can see that that's sort of like a bit of a belly band. But if you wanted to glue it down and you didn't want to do brads, then you can do that as well. And then we've got our dragonfly. So with this one, because we've got our band across there, we wouldn't be able to stamp unless we wanted to stamp an image down first and then stamp an image on there, but that's really, really hard to line up. So I decided I was going to stamp it and then cut it out, which I'll see if I've got some. So on the scrap here, and with your black archival ink. Now your archival ink's great because if you add water or ink or anything to it, it's not going to smudge. There we go, so a nice crisp image there. And then I wanted to give the butterfly, the dragonfly, a little bit of colour. So I just got my watercolor brush from before, and then just as simple as that, just added some color to the wings. And it should dry relatively quickly because I didn't add too much more water to the brush. And then just cut it out. You don't have to be overly close to the lines because we're going to ink it. So normally inking will get rid of that harsh white or cream line on the outside and it will blend it into the black. So you're better off to cut on the outer side of the line than the inside of the line because otherwise you'll lose your border line. Lovely, and now we want to distress him a little bit so he blends in, and we want to definitely, so see what I mean? I don't know whether you can see that. It had white edges or cream edges, so by blending it, it actually gets rid of them. And the tail will just completely distress. And then just a little bit in the middle. Lovely. So now with him, so he's going to be on the band like that, and you want him to stay fairly even. So you don't want to go gluing down here, then gluing down there, and you'll end up with a wave or a crease in him. So what I did, I put a little bit of 3D tape under these two wings. So, dimensional tape or 3D tape. Anything that will raise it up off the edge there. And it doesn't have to be too much. It's just got to go under both the wings and not stick out the side. So I've turned it over and one there. And one there, so you can see that it's going to be hidden, it's not sticking outside the lines. And then I'll take the backing off, and then the other I'm going to glue down. So we're going to use our art glitter glue, So turning it around, and then, you know, try and position it before you stick it down, so that dimensional tape keeps them up off like that. Absolutely beautiful. All right guys, so there's I'll just put the lid back on my glue. There's a beautiful tag and pocket for your journal. Very vintage. I love the color of the speckled egg, which is that one. If you don't have that one, then that one's a must in my eyes. That and the walnut stain that I've been distressing with. I do have to just go around the edge in this one with the black pen, so we'll just do that quickly, just to show you that it just finishes it off, and that you don't have to have a sewing machine. Or even if you do normally sew, try this out with the pen line. See, it just adds that extra bit of flair in my eyes. It highlights the edges as well, and yeah, from a distance it can look sewn. You can do the little dashes if you wanted to look like stitching and that, but definitely guys, have a go at this. Grab your inks and your stamps out, and you know, your stamps you haven't used in a while too. Go through your stash and have a play. But I've absolutely really enjoyed doing this project for you today. And if you haven't already subscribed guys, I would love you to do so. I plan on bringing a lot more videos similar to this, and obviously, you know, in relation to junk journaling. Thanks guys, and have a great day.